everyone. Notes 2.3 are on applying proportional reasoning. And in our first example, it tells us that Micah worked 6 shifts and earned $720, and he earned the same amount of money for each shift. So we want to use that information to figure out how much money he would make if he worked for 4 shifts. And before we solve this, I just want to tell you that if you go to www.desmos.com/scientific, this is a really nice calculator that will help you out as you are doing your work, okay? So the first thing that I need to do for a question like this is figure out how much money Micah makes per shift, which is also known as the unit rate. So I would take the amount of money that he earned, which is $720, and divide that by 6 shifts, because the unit rate is how much money he makes per shift, and figured out how much he made per shift, which is out of 6 shifts. So now all I have to do is just divide 720 by 6 in Desmos. So I take 720, divide that by 6, and I end up getting 120. So this is $120 per shift. Well, if I know that he's making $120 per shift, then I can figure out how much he makes for 4 shifts. Simply by just multiplying 120 by 4. And when I multiply 120 by 4, I get $480. So therefore, Micah would make $480 for 4 shifts. Now we're told that he wants to buy a premium laptop for $1,800. So how many shifts would he have to work to earn this money? If I know that he makes $120 per shift, all I have to do is divide the total amount of money by the unit rate. So we know that he wants $1,800, and he makes $120 per shift. So when I divide 1,800 by 120, I end up getting 15 shifts. Which should make sense, because if he's making $120 per shift, multiply that by 15, we would get the $1,800 that we want. So if we multiply how much money he makes per shift by the number of shifts right here, then it should make sense that if we're working backwards and we're told what the total amount of money is, we should divide it by how much he makes per shift. Therefore, Micah would have to work 15 shifts to make that $1,800 that he wants. Okay? Okay, in our next example, it tells us that a machine can bind 1,000 books in 8 minutes. And we want to figure out how many books the machine can bind in 1 hour. But notice how this is in minutes and this is in hours. So we want to convert these hours to minutes. So 1 hour is equal to 60 minutes. Okay? And the first thing again that I want to do is find the unit rate. Now, sometimes these are given in different orders, so we have to figure out what we have to divide and in what order. Would I divide 1,000 by 8, or would I divide 8 by 1,000? Well, let's think about this. Would it make sense to figure out books per minute, or would it make more sense to figure out minutes per book? Either one is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But for me, I'd prefer to find out books per minute. So I'm going to divide 1,000 books by 8 minutes, because this tells me books per minute. So when I do 1,000 divided by 8, I get 125. And don't forget to label your unit. This is books per minute. So now we can use the unit rate to determine the number of books in 60 minutes. If the machine can do 125 books in every minute, then we can figure out that in 60 minutes, it's 125 times 60, because each minute there's 125 books that are completed. So let's go ahead and multiply that together. So when I multiply 125 by 60, I get 7,500. So we can say that the machine can bind 7,500 books in an hour. So now I want to figure out how long it will take to bind 7,250 books. Well, if I have to multiply the number of books per minute by the number of minutes right here, then to work backwards, I would have to divide it. So I would divide 7,250 by the rate, which is 125 books per minute. So let's go ahead and divide that. So when I divide 7,250 by 125, I get 58 minutes. Now let's think about this a different way. If we know that in 60 minutes we can get 7,500 books and 7,250 books is 250 books less than the 7,500 we can get in 60 minutes, and we can do 125 books per minute, this would be 2 minutes less because 125 times 2 is 250. So if it's 2 minutes less than these 60 minutes that we have here, then we can just do 60 minus 2, which is 58 minutes. Okay, so there's a lot of different ways that you can do this, and as long as you're showing your work, that's all I'm worried about. You can use multiple different ways to solve these problems, okay? So therefore, the machine can bind 7,250 books in 58 minutes. In our next example, a grocery store sells Healthy Start cereal in 2 different size boxes as shown below. So we have our small box, which we're told the cost is $0.0098 per gram. And we have our large box, which we're told the cost is $5.25 for 480 grams. So to be able to compare the small and the large boxes, we need our unit rates. And the nice thing is that for our small box, we're given our unit rate. It tells us how much it is per gram. So since this is for 1 gram, this is our unit rate. But we need to find the unit rate for the large box. It does not tell us the unit rate because this is for 480 grams. So we can take that 525 and divide it by 480 grams, and that'll tell us what our unit rate is. So 5.25 divided by 480, and I get 0.010937. And don't do your rounding quite yet until we get to the final answer or close to the final answer. So we know that the large box is going to charge $0.010937 per gram. But I want to know what the difference is in the cost of 100 grams of cereal for these 2 boxes. So for the small box, to figure out how much I'm charged for 100 grams, I would take the unit price and multiply that by 100 grams. And when I multiply 0.0098 by 100, I end up getting 0.98. So I know it's 98 cents for 100 grams. Now let's do the same thing for the large box. So for my large box, I would take 0.010937 per gram, multiply that by 100 grams, and when I type that into my calculator, I would get 1.09375 for the 100 grams. But I want to find the difference in the cost. So I would take this 1.09375 right here, and I would subtract these 98 cents that I have here. And when I subtract those two numbers, I get 0.11375 as shown here in the bottom right-hand corner. But we're talking about money, so we need to round this to the nearest cent. And this right here is a 1. So we look at what comes after the 1, and there's a 3 here. So the 3 tells us that the 1 stays the same. So this is approximately 11 cents. So therefore, the price difference for 100 grams of cereal is 11 cents. And of course, if you have any questions, write them down and make sure to ask me when I see you in class, okay? All right, in our last example, it tells us that last week, Jamila paid $65.72 for 62 kilograms of potatoes for her restaurant. Today, the cost of potatoes is 2 cents per kilogram lower. How much will Jamila pay for 50 kilograms of potatoes today? So the first thing we need to do is find the unit rate. And by the way, we want to find the unit rate for last week because we need last week's unit rate to find today's unit rate, right? So because it's cost per kilogram, I'm going to take the cost, the $65.72, and divide that by 62 kilograms. And when I type that into my calculator, I will get $1.35. $1.06 per kilogram. I get 1.06. So I know it was $1.06 per kilogram last week. But today it tells me that the cost of potatoes is 2 cents per kilogram lower. So I'm going to take last week's unit rate, which is $1.06 per kilogram, and I'm going to subtract those 2 cents that we're told here is lower than last week's. So when I subtract the two, I get $1.04 per kilogram. So now I want to know how much she will pay for 50 kilograms of potatoes today. So if it is $1.04 per kilogram here, I would multiply that by 50 and I would get $52. So we can say that Jamila will pay $52 for 50 kilograms of potatoes today. And that's it for this video. If you have any questions, let me know when I see you. Otherwise, I hope you have a wonderful day and I'll see you in a little bit. Bye.